Well, it was a good conversation. The third through fourth hours, that was about 4.5 hours for me. I worked out, but the back and forth, the Hythloday, I mean, I was just extremely disappointed. The first hour was saved for Hythloday to go back and forth. We started off talking about how we do it, and we said we'd go back and forth making points. So we'd each have our own theme that we would run, asking the other person a question, and then do a series of rebuttals, and then the other person asks the question, and then we keep each comment down to a minute basically, or on average 30 seconds. If you know you've been talking for a minute, then you yield the hand. But no, I let him start because he was really eager to start on his plan, and he went back and forth. And when I tried to ask my question, he objected and bitched and moaned. 45 minutes in, I'm like, hey, I want to ask a question. And we discussed that all the way till 5. I mean, it's whatever time, until actual o'clock. What was it then? Was it 10 our time, 8 his time? And then Gary came in, we broke the conversation up, and it was a good stickum room on the subject. But Hythloday still wouldn't, refuse to follow any question that I just openly said was on my train of thought. And then he has the gall. I mean, Hythloday, you have to speak for yourself to say that Gary came in and clarified the situation. Yeah, maybe that's what you needed, but if you would have just let me ask my questions, there would have been clarity. I was really offended by that, and by your evasiveness. And of course, you're calling me evasive after I've answered you straight for half an hour everything you wanted to ask, and it's just a rehashing of the videos. And that's the other thing. You're like, when I said let's just, you're going on listing 5 points, and I'm like, wait, let me just respond to the 1 point. It's a conversation, 1 point at a time. You're like, well, you could just take notes. Let's make videos then. I take notes in the video. You make many points as you want. In a live thing, it's about the back and forth. And you just control we start by saying we're going to share the conversation, then you insist on controlling it because, well, this is how it has to be. For the 100% of it. No, that how it has to be, according to you, is how it goes 50% of the conversation. So then after that, Gary came in around an hour in, and he did help clarify it because we just ran a stickum room, and it was this is where Gary and I happened to agree. Plus, he did provoke some of the things that Hythloday is all touchy about, which is basically the creation of a not-for-profit economy. And he might not know it consciously, but there's a very good reason that the capitalist structure doesn't want to compete with something like that. Only a few of them would survive, but the good news is that it would be a really good few. It would be really good evolutionary force on private industry to have to compete with a sane, if not super impressive, minimum. Gary started cussing out people. Now, I was doing really lightweight moderation, where I was just letting people go back and forth. I wasn't insisting on being in between everything. But Gary got a little irate at one point, a couple points, and I interjected him. About the second time, I guess I interjected him, he got really pissed off, and he logged out of the room in anger. And I know Gary can handle that, so that's just the way that it ended. It was getting late there too. But I do want to say, too bad that that's the particular way that ends, because I just want to have a different style of room than that part. All the rest of your contributions are very very welcome. Evidently, they gave Hythloday some sort of insight. And at that point, I just gave in to the fact that he wasn't going to answer my questions. A couple hours later, when I tried to interject him again, I'm like, well, I just want to ask this. He's like, no. If the question wasn't generated from his lame back and forth, let's vlog in real time kind of approach. Anyway. We did end on a couple good notes of him understanding, but yeah, I just find it tiresome at this point you keep saying, I just want some acknowledgement that the market is good in some situations, and I've acknowledged that 100 different ways, in person, in video, and you're still going to go, well, I just... You know, if you're going to do a back and forth, it has to be a back and forth. You don't get to just decide yourself every single line of inquiry, you know. That's not fair. You don't understand fairness, you know. Maybe this is the problem in the social theory. You just don't understand the basic thing. You think there's one way to do it, and it can be done that way. The point of markets is that it's one way to get individual, attitudes into the mix, right? Okay, but it's not the only way. You know, fairness, going back and forth, that's also a way. There's a lot of ways to engage individuals in a social network, interfaces, human interfaces, right? And a market is one of them. But, going back and forth, that really bothered me. We're supposed to go back and forth. How can you think that you have any standing of any possible sort? If you come up with one, you know it has to be an illusion because it's a rule of fairness. You would not let me initiate the questions. Okay? Now, that means I have questions. Industry, you're the one evading. Okay? I spent time on your questions. That is the definition of not evading. Okay? Now, I want to ask you a series of questions. You're the one that doesn't want to answer those. You're afraid to be pinned down or anything like that. A question like, is the Soviet-style planned economy always bad? I thought that we both would agree, yeah. That style is too much planning, and it tries to squelch markets in places you need them. Anyway, it was a good conversation overall, though. Stizer was there, a few other people, and yeah, it was very productive. But I'm not too happy with Hypheliday's attempt to dominate the structure of the conversation. I thought he was just kind of single-track mind sometimes, but it's more overt than that. There's a reason he doesn't respond to any of my inquiries into it. And you have the gall, Hypheliday, to say that my thing is unstructured. Bullshit. I'll structure mine down to a page worth of rules on how it goes if you want. And I have a much more naturally structured approach than you. We had this very specific agreement on going back and forth, and you said, well, it's just laissez-faire. I can do whatever I want. Yeah, that's why I can't, in my social system, have what you would think of as a laissez-faire, because you think that means whatever. You think that means you could say, yeah, we'll go back and forth, but I'll actually go every time. Well, fuck it. Fuck that bullshit.